Welcome back, I'm Kimberly and this is Floral Art Online and our series of using supermarket or store-bought flowers to make arrangements. Now this video is going to be somewhat different in that I've had some requests for ideas about using fruit and vegetables rather than flowers. So we're going to use some lemons today, no flowers at all, lemons today, and we're going to make a little bit of a centerpiece or a sideboard piece for perhaps a harvest festival or a summer festival. What we are going to use though, in the terms of the foliage, is some of the things that we dried from a couple of videos ago. Now I'll put the link to the videos where we used these when they were fresh, and you can see now this is probably about a month later, maybe 6 weeks later, that this material has dried really beautifully. This is the silver dollar gum that has dried, kept most of its colour, but we've got some interesting shapes to use, and it'll be fine like that to use. It will deteriorate over time and get very papery and thin, and you can spray it with a sealant, with a PVA slurry if you want to keep them for any longer period of time. But it's nice just to refresh your dried material as well. So dry it, use it a few times, and then continuously dry something else. So out in the yard, I actually have some strelitzia leaves that are naturally drying out in the sun and the weather, and as you know, I've used those in some of the other series of videos. I've used them quite extensively, and the ones that I've been using are getting a bit tired, they're getting a bit marked, and so I'm refreshing that by drying some new ones. The other thing I wanted to show you in terms of those older videos was that this is the wreath that we did using the magnolia leaves as well as the silver dollar. Now this is how the magnolia leaves have dried. So once again, as I said in the video at the time, you could use it dried, you could just leave it as it was for a country decor type arrangement. These I will take apart now and I will use them in something else that I'm doing in terms of competition, but it's just interesting for you to see how that has developed and naturally dried over time. We've still got, if I show you the back, we've still got the lovely brown that was on the magnolia leaves when we used them, and the fronts have gone a little bit darker, but some of them are still green enough to see that you could use both sides of the leaf in anything that you were doing. So that was just to show you what has happened in the last 4 to 6 weeks since we did that design, and some of the leaves that I'm going to be using in this design. The other things that I'm going to be using in this design, a little bit different. We're going to reuse the bowl, the timber bowl that we used in one of the previous videos. We're going to use some backing, and these are ones, I'll just move these leaves out of the way. These are ones that I prepared earlier. So I've got two to show you. These are both on art canvases that you can buy at any of the cheap stores. And actually, now that I look at the back of them, these were actually paintings that I have painted over, in fact. So even if you went to a charity store and just bought a couple of little prints that and repurposed them for something else, that's going to be a cheaper way to do it. So what I've done is painted them, the back, with a watercolour poster paint, and then this material on here that is collaged on, and I'll just turn this one around because it's actually got a vial that's covered as well on it, is simply paper serviettes. So what you do with those, and I'll put a link in the description to the actual technique to do it, but it's basically taking up off the top layer of a serviette, that's the printed layer, placing it on here, and then just putting the paste or a PVA slurry over the top so that it sticks to the backing board, and that gives you a nice little background area for any design, and they're quite useful to have just around to put your designs up against. If you've got a very busy wall, or you've got an area where you would like to add a little bit more and highlight the design that you've done, having a little backing behind it is pretty good as well. This one's got the vial on the side because I actually, when I used it, had a flower coming out of the side, so the design sort of went across that way, and then there was this one that stood up at the side of the design. I've just left it on there so I know where it is, basically. The other thing we're going to use in that same vein is a picture frame, you know, a shadow box basically. And I've done the same thing there. I've put some of the serviette across the edges just randomly to give it a little bit of continuity, and you'll see how that works when we do the full design. So let's get to the design using lemons this week. Let's go with our design using lemons and our dried foliage. So first of all, using the cutout piece of the lid in this bowl to hold it in place at an angle so that we've got interest both sides of the design. Just going to drop the lemons in there. She said, having tested it out completely and now finding that it won't go back the way she wanted it to. Look for the best way to display your fruit. Obviously that's going to be the centre of attention for this design. So that's what we've got. Up and down in the design as we've talked about before. Now we've got this great little bent piece that I want to use to give some width to the design, because remember we're going to add backing and other things to the design, so we don't want to keep it all in the bowl, we want to spread it out a little bit. What I'm looking at is keeping it within the confines of those backing canvases so that when the canvas is behind it, the design extends the length of that canvas, so it's using all of that background. So we're just going to put some other placements in here just to make it. And obviously you don't need a water source, you don't need foam, you don't need wires or anything to hold these in place because they don't need any of that stuff. We don't want too many straight up and down placements because we want the movement in the design as well. We do want some height, so we're going to just turn it around so I can see it. Now we've got this little bit sticking up here. We're going to use that. We're going to hide it, in fact, because we're going to now place our frame beside that. And I tried a few different ways. I tried having it this way or having it this way. And the problem with this way is that this plain piece at the bottom means that when we get the backing behind it, all we'll see is the pattern, and then there's nothing that carries it through to the bottom of the arrangement. So having it this way is better because this won't detract from what's behind it, but what we will see is that the pattern goes through the whole design. And I just want to turn this around because we need one little bit at the front just to carry the foliage through, and that's what I kept that piece for specifically. So as you can see, we've got one of the bits of foliage coming across this area, this frame here. What we're going to put in here is a very special lemon, and it's going to sit in there as though it is suspended. And basically what I've done with this is it's just the lemon. So what we have here is the lemon with 4 cut pieces of a bamboo skewer that will help it wedge into that space and hold it in place, if I've measured it properly. And the beauty of having the skewers is you can get it in and then you can adjust it. So there we have the first part of the arrangement, just using the lemons and the other things. Then we've got our backings to think about. And so we can have the backing, you know, we've got the 2 colours and we can have them in 2 different ways. So I will take photos of them in all of the various formats and you can decide which one you like best. What we're looking for in it is, does the front arrangement carry through to the back? Can you see it all? Is it better one way than another? So that's the one with the white background. Now let's have a look at the yellow. And once again, this would be dependent on what you're going to put it up against and what other decor you've got around the place. But you can see how just having that backing adds another dimension to the design. Simple to do, and again you've got those backings that you can use for all sorts of other things, or repurpose them for something else entirely different. I think you'll see with these what I meant when I was talking about having the patterned serviette at the base of this part of the design, because it carries through that theme through to this element that's in the front of the design. So there we have our design using some lemons. You could substitute all sorts of fruit and vegetables. I know that the serviettes come in such a myriad of different printed artworks that you could really use that to enhance any kind of decor that or any kind of activity that you wanted to do this particular arrangement for. And it gives you an opportunity to perhaps use up a glut of fruit. If you've got fruit trees and you don't know what to do with some of them, use them in a bit of decor before you actually use them to eat. So these ones will go into the kitchen now to be eaten, but in the meantime we can have them as a display that enhances the kitchen. That's it for today for this particular video. I'm Kim Bailey and this is Floral Art Online.